Hello. Welcome once again to Sun Dragon Tips and Tricks. I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in Brevard, North Carolina. And this is Rebecca at home. A Monday weekly I'm trying to film. So to keep you up to date on everything that's going on in shop life and knitting life and that crochet life and that kind of stuff. So that pause right there actually is one of the topics I thought I would kind of talk about today a little bit. I don't think I had any questions. If you want to put questions in the comments, you can always ask me questions that I can attempt to espouse and philosophize on, that kind of thing. Anyway, before I totally get going, I am going to be real with y'all that getting going a little late today. Because they are digging up the street to replace some water pipes right outside me today. And outside the shop, I should say. And shop, this is my house. A little bit of a headache too. I have chronic migraines, and most of you who watch regularly, like the other show that we film, probably already know this. But so the brain's a little off today, and they have been sawing through the street so they can dig to the pipes. And I think they're at a point where they're working on the pipes and not sawing up the street anymore. So hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully it will not be crazy noisy out there, but I can hear them talking. Anyway, so it's a little distracting. No, I thought I'm wearing one of my crochet pieces today. I could go off a little bit on knit and crochet. And we have a lot of people who come into the shop and say, which one's easier? Which one's better? What do you prefer? Knit or crochet? Crochet or knit? And it's a really hard question to answer. And I find it's a personal preference thing. When people ask what's easier to learn, I think you're going to get a different answer depending on who you talk to. We like to say at the shop that my anecdotal evidence, like unscientific study, is whatever people learned first they think is easier. And so I think knitting's easier to learn, not easier to do, but to learn, because I learned to knit first. So Liz learned to crochet first. She finds a lot of things about crochet easier than knitting, and it could be because she learned crochet first. So that's a hard question to answer. I think there's more manual dexterity needed for crochet personally, even though there's only one stabby, one hook. I'm looking around to see, okay, hook. And I'm usually on circulars, but I have here from Frogging a Project 2 needles. Haha. So I think that some people say, oh, there's 2 tools versus 1 tool. So 1 tool must be easier. When I crochet, this hand does a lot too. And even though I'm left-handed, that's a whole other thing I could go into, is right-handed versus right-handed and left-handed crochet and knit, traditional versus non-traditional, directions of knit and crochet. I am left-handed, but I do things the traditional way, which usually involves a right-handed method, or things move in a certain direction and I don't flip them around. I do hold my crochet hook in my right hand, even though I'm left-handed, because this left hand actually has to do a lot. So I might save that topic for another day, because there's also left hand. You can reverse everything. You can go in an opposite direction. Personally, I don't like to do that, but there are lefties who do. But just to get back to knit or crochet, there's pros and cons to both. And there's things that are better, potentially better, I'll use it in quotation marks, about either. But I just find they are different skills that happen to use yarn. And I'm not going to say one is better or worse overall than the other. I think knitting's easier to learn because even though there's 2 tools that you have to hold, the you can hold them in a way and move the yarn in a way, like it's still going to be, I think it's more manageable for younger ages than crochet. But if that's what you learned when you were young, you just learned how to handle it. So it doesn't mean that one can be taught younger than the other. I tend to do them at different ages, but that's because of the way that I teach. So it doesn't mean that one is easier for a younger person than the other. I have my personal take on it. I would say, one of the things people often say about knit versus crochet is knitting has a thinner fabric that you make, because the essentials of a knit stitch is only one loop coming through another loop, one strand coming through another loop, through a loop. Break it down to its basics. And crochet, a stitch that's about the same height, has 2 loops involved. You pull up one loop and then you pull another loop through a couple of loops. So there's 2 like yarn overs, we could say, in a single crochet stitch, whereas there's 1 yarn over in a knit or purl stitch. So that makes the fabric that is made, usually if you use the same fabric and the different techniques, you would get a thinner fabric out of, if you use the same yarn, you'd get a thinner fabric out of knitting with it than you would out of crocheting with it. Now, when you knit every single row, this thing called garter, when you knit every row, is kind of squishy and a little thicker feeling, but it's still not as dense as crochet, as single crochets, lots and lots of single crochets. So there's that. If you did what's called stockinette, which is where all your V's line up and all your bumps line up, that's even thinner than garter. And knitting flat, that's knitting a row and purling a row. It's much thinner than you could achieve with the same yarn in crochet. To get the same thickness of fabric, you'd have to go much thinner with your yarn in crochet. Now, the flip side, if you want something thick and funky and quick, then crochet is great because you can use a thinner yarn and get a thicker fabric out of it. Crochet overall tends to build, and you can produce finished projects faster with crochet once you're well-versed in it. When you're first learning, everything's going to feel slow and awkward and stuff like that. And there's 2 reasons with crochet. There's more motions happening, but it's quicker to move along. And sometimes it's quicker to move along because you can build taller stitches. They say a double crochet is 3 to 4 times the height of a single crochet. So, and there is some stuff in between there you can make as well. But if you did a piece with all doubles, your rows, you're building taller rows, and so it's going faster. Liz likes to joke that knitting is single crochet for the rest of your life, and she means that the stitches are very short. Classic stitches in knitting are very short. And so you can finish projects and build projects faster with crochet. However, because there's more pull-throughs happening, there's a thicker stitch happening with crochet. The same size project is going to use 1/3 more yarn in crochet than with knitting. So knitting, a ball of yarn might get you a whole hat, whereas in crochet, that might not make you all the way through the project of making a hat. So crochet is faster, but it eats up more yarn. So there's a lot of this, but that kind of stuff. It depends on the project you want to make. If you want to make socks, it's hard to make thin, versatile socks with crochet. There are lots of sock patterns for knitters, and there's a very versatile method. It gives you that smooth, it's hard to have as smooth of a fabric and as thin of a fabric with crochet, so socks tend to be knit. A lot of sweaters tend to be knit, although I'm wearing a cardigan now that is crochet. This style with the granny squares in it, there were only so many sizes you could make, so mine is super oversized and comfy, right? So the stuffed animal thing, that's been a big craze right now. The amigurumi thing from Japan is much more crochet. You get much a stiffer structure that's better to stuff. There's still plenty of knit patterns for stuffed animals, but there's a lot more for crochet. So, but the majority of the sweaters, I'm trying to show you all my fun sweaters that I've made. The majority of the ones that I have are knit. I'm trying to make some more crochet ones. One of those we'll talk about today. So it's one of those, like, they're different mediums. Some of them have overlap and can produce the same thing, but they're still going to structurally feel very different. So I love them both for completely different reasons. Yeah, again, the speed that you can build things with crochet, the structure you can get out of crochet when you're making those stuffed animals. A lot of the things I'm talking about, I love knitting sweaters. I love knitting tops, all that kind of thing. So, yeah, so it's one of those, it's not quite apples and oranges, but kind of. It's like there shouldn't be a battle between the two, and some people kind of feel like there is. We at our shop try to be as embracing and supportive and inclusive of both crafts, whether someone does one. I'm again fumbling with my words because I'm distracted and my head hurts, but so whether one does both crafts or one or none and wants to learn one, it's always challenging if they say, which one should I learn first? Liz would say crochet. And she likes the continental style of knitting, which means, you hold your tension in one hand for both crafts. I switch back and forth. It really, I think there's such a world of possibility out there that, there's just so many directions to go. You can definitely put your comments below this video. I would say try to keep your comments positive and loving, though. Personally, I don't want to trash either knit or crochet, and I don't really want anyone else doing that either. So if you love one, support it, but please try not to be denigrating to the other, because it's not your favorite doesn't mean that it isn't someone else's. I feel like I'm using too many negatives in there. But be respectful that it probably is someone else's. And like I said, I love them both. And I try to represent both on this channel. You may have noticed if you look through the rest of this channel, a lot more knitting videos than crochet ones. And that is not because I love crochet any less. It's usually when people are asking me about things, making requests, that kind of thing. Maybe people need more help with the knitting. I don't know. But knitting is a lot more gadget heavy and like extra doodads and gizmos that you need. And crochet, you can get by with very few things. And so that's both a plus or a minus depending on who you are. Things that are coming to me that I'm like, oh, I can't forget to talk about this. With knitting, you have a bunch of loops that you need to keep track of the whole time. And if one falls out, it falls down and you have to be able to fix that or rip it back. The knitters have 2 words for fixing things, for backing out your work. Tinking, which is the word knit spelled backwards, when you back out really slowly, because we think we got jokes. And frogging, which is taking your needles out and rip it. I think I've talked about that before. It sounds like ribbit in English, which is the sound a frog makes in English. For crocheters, it's just frogging. Because when I teach crochet, I say you're done with a stitch when you have 1 loop on your hook. Not 64, 1. And so it's much easier to back your work out because you don't have to worry about juggling all these stitches and keeping track of them. Whereas I teach a fix your mistakes class for knitting. There's no fix your mistakes in crochet. You got to just rip back and redo, which is a bummer sometimes when it's way down. You can't just go to fix it. But it does, again, crochet builds faster. So if you rip back and you fix it and you keep going. So again, pros and cons to both, right? So I love them both, and I need to be working more crochet into my repertoire to, like, it's hard to have an even, like, represented love for both, but I definitely love both. So like I am today wearing, this is I want to say it's the Ariana. It's by Barocco Yarns. This one actually has knit and crochet in it. The knitting is only the border, and it buckles a little funny at the bottom here because it's really hard to pick up stitches in knitting like at the right rate around the collar of a cardigan to begin with. And then for this one, since it's crochet, it was even more difficult. I redid it a couple times and then said, I am done. But this is like a take, like a take on a classic of a granny square cardigan. Now, if these granny squares, I'll turn around for you. If these granny squares had been straight, had been, let's say, like that, where they're more straight, then you can make like a T shape, and it's really easy to put together. This put them on the diagonal. When they're on the diagonal, it's changing. It's really hard for me to get gauge because it's changing your gauge, because your gauge has to be how wide the square measures on the diagonal. And then they only fit together a certain way, and there's not much, there's huge jumps, I should say, between the sizes of this, because there's only certain ways this one fits together. And it needed so many squares and so many triangles and so many half triangles, and it was really fun to make. But again, the sizes were like, this is super big and fluffy. There were only 2 or 3 sizes, and you kind of had to pick one that either you'd be swimming in or it'd be very tight on you. So I did my best. And I love this one. I made it out of Cascade 220. I made it out of a super basic because I knew it would take a bunch of yarn. At this point, I can't really remember how many it took me to finish, but it was a good chunk of yarn to make a sweater. Like the cost adds up for a crochet sweater. But these squares were crocheted together as you went. This lightest color, you added the outer edge as you were attaching them together, which was kind of fun. So I have a couple other crochet things to show you today, but I'm also going to talk about a few other things and some knit stuff. So I promised that I would bring home my blocked Papillon. Sorry, I'm getting stuck on other things. I got a lot of things on the table today. And so if you go back 2 weeks, excuse me, you can see when the knitting was just finished. And this, I aggressively blocked this. So I'm going to try not to trip over my chair. And hang on. I'm also trying not to have the strings hanging down. But if you go back and look 2 weeks ago, you can see how I pulled the top straight when I blocked it, and I pulled the center, and then I pulled aggressively on the pods, and then on all the little picots to open them up. But it makes the lines crisper. It makes this whole thing bigger. You might be able to see where I had to change back from the light to the medium a little more. But it's gorgeous. I really want to put it up on the wall somewhere at the shop because it really deserves to be displayed in its full glory. And it's a yarn we don't have in the contrast yarn is Cascade Heritage in Snow, and we're out of stock at the moment. We do still have that yarn in the shop. The Puno, that was the 3 different shades I broke apart to make the 3 different sections of this. We don't have that yarn anymore, Lang Puno. But I'm so glad I finished this because it has been a labor of love and staring at me for a long time. So, so that is one I wanted to make sure I brought home and showed you all. And just like, look at that. Look at the definition. When you get the numbers right, it's all counting and doing short rows on this. When you get the numbers right, and then when you block it, it just pops. And I will say the garter because I aggressively block this, the garter is not quite as squishy and it's a little more flat. So this is definitely, if we go back to the crochet knit talk I was doing at the beginning of this, it's definitely flatter than single crochet, especially when you aggressively block it. So this guy is wonderful and soft and would make a wonderful, it's so deep, it's hard to just like wrap it around, like so it hangs in front, but it's a good wrap around the shoulders type deal. So, so that is finished and blocked, and I have not woven my ends in, so technically it's not really 100% done, but it's close enough to being done for me. And I also wanted to show you all pre-blocking. I finished my Laulu, Laulu shawl by Sari Nordlund, and I'll back up with this one. I won't stand up, but you can see the color change of this ball was gradual, like started with very light pink and ends with this corally orange. And I won at Yarn Chicken. You can even tell where the center change was taking place too, right? This is how much I had left. I have not weighed it, but it's probably only like a gram or two. I won at Yarn Chicken. This is going to really, this is pre-blocking. I made this bigger than the original pattern so I could use every square inch of yarn, but look at how it will probably block out. So when I hold it up like this, you can kind of see the cables and lace in it. Let me try to get that. Yarn ends. You can kind of see the cables and lace, but then if I pull on it, you can really see it's gonna get bigger if I block it, and that's really gonna sing. But so I wanted to show you all, like I do this over on the sideshow, the Sun Dragon sideshow as well, pre and post blocking. And again, starts with light pink. We still have some of this in the shop. This is one ball, only one ball making all this. There's 500 plus yards in it. And it was really fun, and I'm super excited it's done. Our Laulu class, we had a few people who needed to, like their schedule shifted, and the one person left in the class said, well, maybe we can wait then and reschedule it for when more people can take it. And so I will probably put it back on the schedule in the second half of the year. Again, most of these classes are in person. If I can find time in the schedule to do virtual, I will. But right now, except for the Coach and Connect, which I will hopefully update you on in a second, this is going to be in person. Coach and Connect is our virtual option for the make-alongs. And we do have, it's every other Saturday, starting in the first Saturday of April, for the Granny Hexi Cardigan, which I will circle back to in a second. Because we are still in March, we still have 1 week left. In fact, when I film next week, it'll be the last week of March. I have not blocked my staff in pullover. It's not here at home right now. That I told you last week I was going to weave the ends in on, and I haven't yet. I think I don't tend to only block one thing a week, or about one thing at a time, because I don't have enough blocking pads to do multiples. I think the Laulu is going to be this week's. So I have finished the pullover of the staffin. That was the February-March make-along. And I'm actually making really good progress on the vest. Da-da! This is last night. It's partially because the pieces of the top were fun and short, and they were still using the pattern I've almost memorized by now, that I made it this far. I got to joining the underarms on like Saturday, I think, and Saturday morning. And then I finished ball 3 and busted through ball 4 on Sunday. So that's the end of ball 4. I'm using Barocco's Merino. This is the back. Or is it? No, this is the back. I was like, is it the front? I don't know. The front's facing me. Barocco's Merino 401 is The yarn I'm using for this, it comes in 50-gram balls. That's why I've already finished my 4th one. That's the equivalent of 2 100-gram skeins. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, you can tell, I'm not long enough yet, but I want to try on with you all and see how the length of this is going. In some ways, it's weird that, you know, the torso of this is probably as many stitches as it was on the pullover, but since I don't have sleeves and everything, there's something like, it's halfway in my head, but I feel like it's going a lot faster. And it could be because I know I don't have the huge massive sleeves yet to go. So, I want to see what my length is at. I managed to get just past, there's 15 rows of knit 2, purl 2 ribbing on this. And I got through those before the skein ran out, with the help of watching some TV, you know, because this is fairly mindless knitting, and that's when things tend to get a little boring for me. So I'm totally just still sliding it on the barber cords here. So if I get it off those off the knitting needles onto the barber cords. Here we go. All right, let's see. We're going to be putting it on over my knitting shirt here, but let's see how it's doing. I tried it on just after, here, I'm trying to move some of my power cords out of the way too. I tried it on just after trying to, joining the front and the back. So then it seemed like it was going to fit just fine. And of course, who knows? But again, blocking swatches I don't tend to block my swatches, but gauge swatches can sometimes lie. But I'm making sure this, yep, okay. But this is looking okay. It always looks a little puckery down here because it's hard to pull the barber cords in a way that won't make it flare. But I still have to do the collar and the and edging on the armholes. But I was worried the armholes would be too small, and they're just fine. So I would say if you're doing the back and you're heading to the front and you're going, that's not big enough for armholes. The front, actually, you join way back here. And so most of the front that you're doing is actually your top shoulders. So, yeah, belly. So obviously I have ways to go. I have at least maybe a couple more skeins to go. I want to say this was only going to take me like 6 skeins, hopefully, of the 50 grams, which is like 3 skeins of 100 grams. So I'm making good progress, but it does mean that I have to buckle down and do some more knitting in the round. But I gotta say, oh my gosh, knitting this guy in the round, like when you knit flat, there's parts in here that to make the bobbles right, there's so many rows of purling around it. They don't look like purling on the right side. When you're knitting flat, you got to purl to make it look like a knit on the front side. And it just like, oh my gosh, lots of purling. If you like purling, try one of these. If you don't like purling, then stick to the pullover because there's less purling in that one. Now that I'm going in the round though, there's lots less purling and I'm very excited by it. I was before. I picked a color I wouldn't normally have picked just because if I only picked colors I liked, then the shop would not have a lot of colors in it. It would only have a few colors that I really like in it. So, we'll see. I will update you all. Just because our make-along is only 2 months long does not mean you have to finish what is the objective of the class in those 2 months, but I might get close. And instead of saying it's going to drag on for years, which is what usually happens to the thing that I don't finish during a make-along, like I get almost done, then it just sits and sits and sits in one of my bags, like the Pressed Flowers cardigan. That one I'm still not done with, but I'm a whole lot closer than I was after Finish Your Frog in February. So what else am I working on right now? a lot of the things I brought to show you are crochet, actually. Now that we've showed you the knit piece I finished and the knit piece I'm currently working on. I always have a million things I'm working on. And to finish up the knit part of this episode, I was searching for yarns for the Harvester, which is a pattern by Jennifer Steingass, one of my favorite just colorwork yoke top pattern writers. And so of course I had to do a sweater by her during the make-alongs this year, because they're all sweaters or tops. And I picked the Harvester, which has these leaves that look like they're flowing, kind of like the Avena, but the Avena was fronds more. And these have leaves going boop, 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 all the way around it. And I brought in a whole palette of colors that I was trying to decide between, and it turns none of them are going to be in the Harvester. But because I was trying to pick like a pink or something pinkish and a green. And I brought in, I should just leave them in the thing, but now they're out, in the bag, but now they're out. I brought in all these colors of Patagonia. And my friends in the shop said, that's a beautiful palette. You could do a striped sweater out of that. And the Harvester, I'm going to use a hot pink that's not here, like a fuchsia pink, with a color of a Federbrook that I think is going to be gorgeous. But this, what I might do with this, then I went to, okay, so should I just pick out a DK weight or sport weight? Because this is technically DK, but you can use it for sport if you want to. I was like, should I just find a basic sweater and put stripes into it? And then someone pointed out, I was looking at the Key sweater by PetiteKnit. And what's cool about the Key sweater, I was going to do it with a thicker yarn, and I was going to have to change my gauge and do all these things. But now I think I'm going to use these, and I'm going to change colors every stripe. But the cool thing about the Key sweater, it's not only stripes. The stripes look like puzzle pieces, like not four-sided puzzle, but just strips with the puzzle pieces, the little, comes up and then goes blobby, so it fits into the other puzzle piece. So it looks like these strips, they're almost like blocking mat strips that interlock. So they're not just stripes, they have these interlocking pieces. And I've seen on Ravelry, some people have made them with just stripes, or have made them without the stripes at all, the interlocking stripes. And I'm kind of going, but why? But that's me. Everyone's got what floats their boat and they want to do, and that's fine. They could have liked the fit of it. But I think PetiteKnit has other sweaters that have the same fit without having to take the pattern with stripes and remove the stripes. Anyway, I think I'm going to, it's totally not for a class, not for necessarily a sample to sell yarn, although it could because it's really cool, and not for, just to show off what the yarn can do, although it can do that too. This might just be for me, just for fun. And here's the thing, is the pattern is written for Aran weight, like a worse, which there's a whole thing. I can get into a whole thing with Liz over this, because in Aran is the same thing as worsted in England, and over here it can mean slightly thicker than worsted. It really depends. And PetiteKnit had an Aran with no, take that back. Had a worsted with a lace weight that was an alpaca to make an Aran. So it was like, but it's on sevens. It's just, it's US sevens. And the gauge is 18 stitches for 4 inches or 10 centimeters. And at first I was like, well, this will just have to go the other way. This will have to go the other way of what I was going to do, is if I'll have to go like up needle sizes, or I'll have to get a gauge I like, and then I will just do magic math on it. I think I'm going to try a swatch double stranding, because this is a lot of yarn. There's 300 182 yards on each one of these. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we say, okay, the way my head math will work, because my phone is my calculator and it's filming right now. The way that my head would work on this is to say, okay, let's take 400. Let's round up. 400, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 5. That's 2,000 yards of yarn, right? Minus 20 times 5 is, I still might not have I don't know, double stranding might not work. Minus the, let's again, head math. Minus, let's see, 100, because the 20 times 500. So that's still 1,900 yards of yarn, roughly. If I cut that in half, if I double strand this, if I cut that in half, that might not be enough for a sweater. I might have to crack into extras of one of these, but I was hoping, like, if I only use a single strand of this, I'm going to have a ton left over probably. I have to see what the yardage is. I am bigger than I used to be, and this sweater I think is meant to have a lot of oversized ease. So I'm going back and forth between double stranding. I think I'm going to try samples to see if I can get close to those 18 stitches. Or if I want to single strand and let it be super flowy and loose, or if I want a single strand and change the gauge, which changes the size I'm going to make. But I am excited about what this will look like. So stay tuned. Lots of head math there. Okay, so other things going on, especially with crochet, I'm going to switch to crochet now, is I have a class this Saturday in shop on the Monti wrap by Toni Lipsey. She is like the queen of Tunisian crochet. This is regular crochet, and I finally made some decent progress on this yesterday. My head's been off for a few days, so what that meant is I stayed home yesterday. It was a day off, but I stayed home from doing any errands or going to church or anything like that, and just worked on a few things when I felt up to it. And this row is kind of coming out, this last row, but I am holding together exquisite lace and a mohair. You can do this with single strands. I've done it very beautifully with single strands of any thickness. Just have the right hook for it. Here is what, I think last week I probably was in here somewhere. Here's what my Monti wrap is looking like. It is, I'm over halfway through this middle section as I go and pull out more of it. But that's the thing with crochet. If it pulls out here, I can pick it up again and start it very easily as long as I have this single loop. What a lot of people do is they put in a stitch marker here so it doesn't pull out any further, and I live dangerously and have to redo some of my work sometimes. But I think I'm supposed to have like 40 something of these little, I call them the little squares in the center here, and they jig jog 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I have 26, and I think I need like 42 before I go back to the other edging on the other side. This stuff almost killed me because it's very monotonous, but I'm hoping on the other end, when I know it's almost done, that it will be, let's see how that, it's gonna be so pretty. It will not take as long. So finally making really good progress on this. I have eaten up, this is my third ball of the mohair, and this is all I have left from the first ball of the color changing mohair from down here. I'm hoping I only need one of these, but I'll crack into a second if I have to. I have, let's see, so this is my second ball of the exquisite lace. This is what I have left of the first ball. I don't have my scale in here to show you, but this is still my first ball of the exquisite lace. And it is in all of this. It is in all of this. So it's made me incredibly far away. So holding the exquisite lace with something else can really get you distance in crochet. And this is an example of how fast things can build in crochet, because this open airiness is hard to get with knitting. So if you see something that is as open as this throughout it, like in certain spots, like Stephen West loves to do little things where there's big gaps. But if you see this many big gaps all the way throughout, you are probably looking at something that's crochet. So, and the way that it's fine and airy and fluffy like this is because I went way down on the thickness of the yarn. So, and holding the lace with the mohair is really still only the equivalent of fingering weight yarn. I will say that stuff statically clings to me so much when I'm working with it, but it's been a lot of fun. Something I started just on Saturday, and I got through one square of 3 squares. I am hoping to go back to the island that I vacationed on and learned a new skill at up in New Hampshire on 3 Mile Island. For the Creators Week, I learned a new skill, and I'm hoping to go back and teach people a skill, teach them how to make a market bag. And the idea is, if they've never crocheted before, they could have a market bag or make decent progress on a market bag before the end of the week. It's really only like a 3 or 4 day week, like excursion thing. And one of the patterns, there's several patterns, but one of the patterns I've picked is it's called the Granny Sling bag. I don't have the name of who it's by here, but I'll try to put it in the description. And it's 3 of these. You make 3 granny squares that are 11 rows wide. And I am using the myrtle from Queensland, which is a eucalyptus-based, it's a plant-based, fun, shiny yarn. So instead of a cotton, I'm using a eucalyptus yarn. And when you fold them, so this is the width of the bag, and then it'll have another one of these folded squares to make a triangle here, and another one here. So it's like the granny squares on my cardigan, but bigger. And then there's a strap on it. So it's not a super deep bag. The sides go up, so it's got a low point in it. So it's not a huge bag, but it's, it's got some functionality like a purse. And the sling, it's meant to kind of be a crossbody bag type of thing, So I'll show you if I make any more progress on that. Notice I have not woven in any of my ends. Things just feel more finished when the ends are woven in, and having all these ends sticking out. But but that has been fun to make. It just shows that I as long as I have time, and the shop's been a little slow lately, so I've had time. That should get finished by next week, no problem. The last thing I have to show off to you all, which is moving into, next Monday will be the last day of March. And so we'll be talking about starting our next make-along, or April-May make-along, which is the Granny Hexi Cardigan. So this is a cardigan, and this has granny squares in it, but it's not the Granny Hexagon cardigan. I have been showing y'all I'm using my crochet. It just totally fell to the bottom of the bag. This guy, this is 1/2 of my Granny Hexi. After you make the 2 halves, there's still a little bit more work to do. This is the half that I finished, and except for the end, the one end there, the end. My ends are woven in on this, so it feels a little more finished, but this is 1/2. And I'm using old skeins, old dye lots that don't match what we have on the shelves of Cascade 220 Superwash. So I pulled one of every color that we had in this bag, and there's 22 colors that I just used. Every time I finished a row, I started on the inside here, 6 sides. And every time I added a row on, I'm like, what might look nice as the next row? What kind of works? And not paying attention to anything before that. And what I did, I was really close to the right width. You have to measure half the hexagon to figure out if you're at the right width for you personally. That's how this thing is built. And someone mentioned last time, Kelly Phelps. Someone mentioned last week they looked it up. but I was just shy of it. So I reused the center color here for the outer row here. And if you take just one of these sides and fold it, what was something that wouldn't lie flat suddenly miraculously lies flat, and it is 1/2, the biggest piece, the 2 halves of my cardigan. And she mentions anyone who has got a bigger bust or bigger body circumference they're trying to make this for is going to have wider sleeves. And I do, because I've got the big girls and I got a bit of a tummy right now. So my sleeves, like this is already long enough to be my whole sleeve. If I was skinnier, then this wouldn't be as wide, and so it wouldn't be as long. And so you need to add more sleeve and more torso to it. So mine is going to come out kind of big and oversized and floofy sleeved, kind of like this. And someone else who's making it for not to be oversized, but to fit, and they are not as girthy as me, is going to have a different shape to theirs. Because once I finish the other side, which I'll show you in a second, there's a little bit of back piecing, and then you can put on the edging like this and edging like this. But there's options, which is really cool, I think. I want to make one during the make-along itself. Once I finish this, I want to make one with some super bulky yarn and just see how fast it goes. I think that would be so cool to see how fast it works up. Because again, thick stuff, like thick yarn and fast building stitches, this is all doubles, can make a really, really fast project. So, so that has in-shop class, like a kickoff class that gives you reduced rates on everything else that is in-shop help. Is April, I want to say 5th. It's that Saturday. It's that first Saturday. So if you're interested, contact the shop to sign up for the in-class. We can have, like, in shop, we have a limited number of spaces because there's only so many people who fit in the room, and helping people, once the number surpasses like 5, it's really hard to give people the help that they're paying for. The Coach and Connect is our virtual option, which starts that same Saturday, and then it's every other Saturday after that. There's like 4 of the sessions total. You can find the info at our online shop when you look for the Granny Hexi Cardigan Make-Along Coach and Connect. And it's only $40 for all 4 sessions. So it's $10 a session. They're each one's an hour long. And we're going to go over anything we think is going to be helpful and then open the floor for questions. The first session tends to be a lot of let's go over the nuts and bolts and stuff. But that can have as many people. There's no limit on how many people can sign up for that one. So I really recommend you go check that out and look into that option if you'd like to connect with me and ask me questions, that kind of stuff. Sometimes I can answer questions here, but I feel like it's not as direct, it's not as immediate. And you might have other questions that come up in the course of asking a question. So what I did for the other side of this, though, is I decided, since it begins and ends with the same color, and I might have done this even if it didn't, I would go in the reverse order through the colors on the other half. And so for now, here's what it's looking like for the other half. And you can see the outside edge of this is the inside colors of this. And I think it's going to be so cool. Like, if we hold these up together, like, it's so busy, it's going to be awesome, in my opinion. But I am still, like, let me see now here. If I count the rows to the center here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I still have 6 rows to go on this. So you can see how much 6 rows is going to add. Like, this isn't big enough yet to match the other one. This would be on this side potentially. But so just 6 rows is going to greatly expand how big this is. But you can see how if you're making it for a skinnier person who still has arms as long as I do, that they would have to add on a lot of granny rows after they're done with this. And so they would have a more slender armed, unless they wanted to make it big and oversized. more slender armed cardigan, and they might have to do more rows along the bottom. So you can see how this will be different depending on the person who's making it and how they want it to fit. But what's kind of cool about it is it's not based on gauge, it's based on measurements. So you can pick a thicker yarn or a thinner yarn, and it's based on the measurement right here when you fold it. So I think that's super cool. Who knows? Next week I might have something I can put on and show you. I don't know. It depends on what time I devote to which project, and I never know that. So this week there's a lot more crochet things I'm working on, which is always exciting, but there's always a million knit projects too. I think I'm down to having finished the Staffen and the Laulu shawl. I think I still have 20 plus projects on needles, because I'm always itching to try to, like, every time I finish a project I want to start 2 more. And there's probably projects I haven't even accurately counted at this point. But that's better than 40, which is what it was at the beginning of February. So I am going to sign off right now and go put all this together, because I think they're still working up there. But I think I've maximized the window of quiet that I'm going to have. And we'll see what it looks like tomorrow out there, because I don't think they were going to finish in a day. And there's chunks of pavement missing. And I think they're going to have to repave the road, and we'll just see what happens. So it's going to be an adventure. So anyway, oh, I want to show you a couple more things I want to work on. Another new yarn that came in. So I have all these yarns here. This is the Noro Sonata and Sonata Shima. Sonata Shima. They are cotton blends. They both have cotton, viscose, silk, and polyamide. So viscose is kind of like bamboo, kind of. And the polyamide is more synthetic, and the silk is still more animal-based. So it's not totally vegan. We've learned from vegan people in the shop who come into the shop, but it doesn't have wool in it. This guy will probably do some color stripey fun things. And this guy's just tonal and beautiful. And again, Sari Nordlund, who did the Laulu shawl, I want to do her Kuutar tee out of this. And I'm thinking it might be time for another ranunculus. So I don't know how many projects I'm going to start. These may not all get started in the next week, but I will report back to you on all the fun things that I'm going to try. These both have knit projects in store for them, circling back from all the crochet I just showed you. So, as I always like to sign off, if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscription numbers, and commenting and liking and all those things just mean more people get to see all the cool stuff that we are sharing and talking about and helping with and that kind of thing. And as always, may your crafting be filled with joy and confidence. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.